Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining our webinar today. I'm super excited to host this webinar with folks from all around the country wanting to learn more about how you can earn 10K more over the holidays. Before we jump in, I'm just going to give it one more minute to see if any more folks trickle in while we get situated. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Again, thank you for joining today. There's a bunch of exciting stuff we're going to cover today. The overarching theme here is how you can earn 10K more over the holidays. Before we get to the meat of the presentation, I'm just going to introduce myself super quickly. My name is Alex Samvani. I am the co-founder and CEO of Slang. Started Slang just under 4 years ago, and the reason why I co-founded Slang is really twofold. First and foremost, I'm a consumer frustrated by the experience of calling a business. It is always a pain, right? Calls go straight to voicemail, frustrating menus where you're pressing buttons, automated systems that don't understand you. And all of that is really frustrating to me as a consumer, and I know that there's a better way. As a technologist, I know that technology can help us improve the experience, specifically using AI. So at Slang, what we do is use AI to improve the experience of calling a business. And the second reason is I actually come from a family of small business operators. So I actually know how stressful it is to run a business with limited resources. And I know that the phone is one of the biggest stressors for business operators. And so I get really excited about the potential to help operators out there grow their businesses and using technology to help them streamline operations as they scale. Okay. So that's me, but we are here to cover some important information. So there's really two things that we're going to cover in just a second. We're going to having some technical difficulties with the presentation here. Just hold for a couple seconds while we get that up and running again. Okay, pulling that back up. Are we able to go to the next slide? Perfect, and next slide. Okay, so agenda for the day. There's two things we're going to go over today. First, we are going to go over trends in holiday call data. So we have proprietary data that we've analyzed from a subset of over 1 million calls from our database. And it's the first time that we're presenting this data, so I'm super excited to go over it with you all. What we're going to show you is calls in spikes or trends in holiday spikes. That will help you understand how you can operate your businesses more effectively during the busy holiday season. And then second, we're going to cover tactics that help you earn 10K more this holiday season. Sounds ambitious, but you'll see in the data that it's totally doable with the tactics we're going to show you. All right, so let's start with the data. First, I want to talk about our methodology. So what we did to gather this data that we're about to show you is analyze a subset of 1 million calls, just over 1 million calls that we processed over the past 12 months. And we analyzed all of these calls using AI to understand trends, topics, and other insights that we're going to show you in just a second. These calls were a subset of our customers, and these customers are a range of hospitality businesses. So it's a mix of full service, fast casual, as well as major metros, non-major metros. So it's a good mix. Hopefully this data is really representative and helpful to all of you. And just a quick stat, just so you can get a sense of the scale, or at least on average, the restaurants in this sample get an average of 30 calls per day. So that just grounds us in the data. So one super fascinating insight that's really the jumping off point for this data portion of the presentation is that holiday periods result in massive spikes around calls with respect to operating hours. So think about this. Your guests are searching for you online and they see your hours either on Google Business or on your website, and they don't trust it, so they call you. So a lot of these holiday spikes we see are actually guests asking about your hours of operation. Are you open right now? What are your holiday hours? Can I walk in? Speaking of walking in, the other piece of this is guests that are on the go, holiday shopping, or out, being merry with their friends and wanting to be spontaneous. There are, because of those spontaneous activities, there are a lot of calls about walk-ins. Are you open right now? And so this is super interesting because as we look at the call data across those over 1 million calls, we see that across all major holidays, there are massive spikes, specifically around questions of operating hours. And so why should we care about that? Well, these are guests that are asking if you're open, if they can walk in, if they can place an order. These are actually revenue generating calls that you should be handling really quickly. But the second piece of it is these really big spikes in calls about hours of operation actually distract your team and reduce their ability to focus on very large revenue generating transactions, such as calls about catering or buyouts or other large party reservations. So that's why we're focusing on calls about hours of operation. And we're going to dig into that data even more. So first, let's talk about or let's take a guess. I'm curious. If you just take 2 seconds, and if you want to drop in the chat as well a guess, you're welcome to do so. Which holiday do you think gets the biggest call volume spike? Take just 2 seconds to think about that. And I'm going to see if I have any responses in the chat. Okay, I'm seeing Valentine's Day, Christmas, very good guesses. Thanksgiving, okay. Another Christmas, Thanksgiving, cool. I'm seeing more trickle in, but why don't I just do the big reveal in the interest of time. Fun fact, the biggest spike actually happens on Memorial Day. And we're not sure exactly why that is the case, but we have some pretty good hypotheses. One is Memorial Day is one of those confusing holidays where folks are like, is this a federal holiday? Is this not? Very different policies in terms of observation. And Memorial Day is also the jumping off point for the summer. And so we see this time being when operations really need to scale up, demand is scaling up really quickly, and your staffing needs to reflect that. So it's a really challenging period for hospitality brands. And on Memorial Day, we see an average of 5.8x the normal amount of calls about hours of operation. But we have some holidays coming up even sooner, right? So Thanksgiving is just around the corner. That's another big one. So Thanksgiving, we see an average of 4 times the normal amount of calls around hours of operation. And then just after Thanksgiving, we have Christmas, right? So Christmas is 5 times the average amount of volume. And really, I should talk about what I should mention here is for really the entire month of December, we are seeing elevated call volume across all call reasons, but specifically hours of operation continue to spike throughout the month. The biggest spikes being Christmas and New Year's. So this is really interesting data to us because if you just to give you a sense of the scale of this, so let's say you normally get let's say you normally get around 5, maybe 10 calls around hours of operations throughout the year. Around the holidays, that can go up to 4 or sometimes 6 or more times that average call volume. So let's say if you get 10 calls a day on average about operating hours, during the holidays, you're going to get, call it 60 of those calls. And so you really have to think about, one, how are you responding to those calls? Are those guests actually getting the answer to those questions? And then two, what is that doing to your staff? The holidays are super, super busy, right? You have people flowing through the door left and right. Your staff is spread very thin. The phone's ringing off the hook, right? And so if there's a way for you to streamline those phone calls, either through optimizing your online experiences or looking at some tech solution that can help you with that, it's really important to think about, because these holiday spikes are really dramatic, as you can see by this chart. What I love about this chart too is pretty much every major holiday has a very dramatic increase. So this is not just a year-end holiday problem. It's not just Thanksgiving. It's not just Christmas and New Year's. It's really every major holiday we are observing these spikes for hospitality brands. Okay, so that data helps inform the next section of the presentation, which is really what we're here for today. This is what we titled the webinar, right? Tactics to actually capture 10K more in revenue this holiday season. So how can you work smarter to do that? Let's jump into the tactics. So the first one is seasonal menus. So I just came back from the RFDC conference in Vegas and talked to dozens and dozens of operators. Seems like everyone is doing something seasonal for the holidays, right? And the reason why they do that is because it works. And it doesn't have to be something super heavy. It doesn't have to be a super heavy lift either. There's a range of options you can pursue, whether that's a limited offer, whether that's a seasonal menu or some sort of home kit. One thing I'll also note here is that in our proprietary or first-party data, we also see an increase in questions about seasonal offerings. So we know from our technology as well that there's increased demand for these seasonal offers. Some of you may already be doing this, but if not, let this be a reminder that these offerings work. And so you should definitely think about it if you're interested in maximizing your revenue for this holiday season. Okay, next tactic, gift cards. 62% of consumers hope to receive a gift card for the holidays. I love that stat. And we see a lot of this as well in the call data that we analyze. So, excuse me, we see guests calling about gift cards, asking what those options are, asking how to redeem those gift cards. So this is something you should not overlook. Gift cards are also a really, really strong way to easily generate revenue that quickly reaches your bottom line. So we would really encourage you to think about this if you're not already. So next, we really want you to think about optimizing your reservations intake. So making a reservation over the holidays should be frictionless. And you specifically want to think about your reservations flow over the phone. You want to make sure that your phone is appropriately staffed. And if you are having trouble staffing your phone, you want to make sure that you have some sort of solution for guiding those guests to the right reservation platform. We know from our data that the average party size coming over the phone is 4.8 on average, which is high. So that means if you're not optimizing your phone channel, the demand that's coming over the phone, you are leaving revenue on the table. And that's especially hard to do when you're getting high call volume for inquiries like, what are your hours? And you have your hosts just spending all of their time saying, yep, we're closed tomorrow, or we're open until 8, or yes, we're doing yes, we're taking reservations, or no, we're actually just walk-in only at this period. One thing that we hear as well is that sometimes over the holidays, the call volume can get so high that some operators decide to just turn the phone off altogether because it's too big of a distraction. And obviously, when you do that, you're leaving revenue on the table. And with some quick just thought and in time investment, you can make sure that your reservation experience is frictionless and that you are capturing these reservations to the maximum extent. So fourth tactic is optimize your catering and private events intake flow. This is huge. It's hard to overstate how important this is. The holidays are a huge time for catering, whether that's private catering or corporate catering, large party buyouts, etc. I don't have to explain that to everyone here. Everyone knows that very deeply. But what you need to think about is how do we optimize our intake so that we can actually capture all of that demand. It's especially painful to miss an inquiry, whether that's an email or a phone call or a contact form submission around one of these large transactions, because we know that if those inquiries are not responded to quickly, that you're probably going to lose that business, even if it's just a 1 hour lag time. That guest, whether it's a personal guest or whether it's a corporate guest, they've probably moved on to another provider, another hospitality option, if you are not responding to them immediately. So you want to think through, how can we streamline our online experiences? Do we want to explore tech solutions for managing these intake inquiries? Do we want to explore options for optimizing our phone traffic? Do we want to change our staffing levels? There's so many ways you can attack this, but you really want to think about optimizing this, because missing these opportunities is really leaving revenue on the table. Okay, so we went through the 4 tactics. How does that add up to 10K? We promised that this would generate 10K of revenue, right? I'd throw out that as we went through this analysis, we actually found that 10K is really conservative. But we went through these 4 categories, right? Seasonal specials, reservations, catering orders, and then holiday buyouts plus corporate catering. So depending on the type of brand you are, whether you're full service, fast casual, you might have different mixes here, but we ran our analysis in a way that is flexible so that it's relevant for everyone, and we can credibly say that 10K is really the floor in terms of the opportunity that you can capture if you optimize around all of these tactics. So the way that we determined the demand for these different categories is we used, number one, our first party data, which is millions of phone calls that we have in our database. Again, for this analysis, the source was a subset of 1 million phone calls, and through that data across 12 months, we understood what the demand is for these various different categories based off of our call data. And then we married that with data from our tech partners and from research to further understand what is the uplift that we can expect if we are optimizing around each of these categories. And as you can see here, we're pretty conservatively adding up to 10K, but if you just imagine, if you make an optimization just around holiday buyouts alone and you're able to capture just 1 or 2 incremental more buyouts through optimization, you can see how these numbers can get very, very, very big. So these tactics are kind of covering a breadth of areas of your business. And similarly, there's a breadth of options that you can pursue to actually optimize around them. And there's, as I mentioned earlier, you can attack it from a technology perspective. You can attack it from a marketing and online experience optimization perspective. You can think about your staffing levels. But one of the easiest ways you can actually hit all of these tactics at once is making sure that you are answering all of your phone calls, which we know is a big pain point for hospitality brands around the busy holiday season. So let me start by just asking a question. How many of you would be able to support 200 additional phone calls tomorrow? So we know that the day before Thanksgiving, for example, is a super big day for phone calls. That's right around the corner. Do you have faith that you can actually scale up your operations with the demand that you're getting over the phone for the holiday season? Most of the folks that we work with say no. And that's really where we come in. We help businesses communicate with their customers at scale. So Slang is a 24-hour phone concierge. Again, that scales up your communications as your customer demand scales without requiring you to hire more staff. It's all about getting guests answers to their questions quickly and then shielding your staff from the low value questions like, what are your hours today? So that they can focus on those revenue generating use cases, as well as focus more on the guests that are there within the four walls of the restaurant. So why is this relevant, particularly for the holiday period? Well, we know the following. Well, one, you're going to get big spikes in call volume. And so if it's pretty difficult to scale your staff up commensurate with that call volume, it's just very difficult to do. And so a tech solution like Slang can actually help you scale up as your demand scales and capture more of that demand. We also know that guests are willing to we know that guests are willing to engage with a technology solution that actually answers their questions. And we also know, as I mentioned earlier, jumping around a little bit, but that stat that I mentioned earlier around customers going elsewhere if their call is not answered, here's the stat: 42% of customers will go elsewhere if they get voicemail or a busy signal. So think about that during the holiday period, right? If we're talking about an incremental 50 calls a day or even more calls a day, depending on how large of a brand you are and what metro you're in, it's going to be really hard for your staff to actually answer all of those calls. And if you don't have a solution to capture all of that demand that you're getting, you're going to leave revenue on the table. And so a solution like Slang can really help you do that. So I'll just show you a couple of examples of how we do that. So one thing that Slang does is it actually can automatically send text messages with the information that your guests are asking for, right? So if your guests are asking for catering options, you can instantly send a text message that you get to customize with links directly to your catering online experience. Or if you have, for example, a catering director, you can instantly forward those catering inquiries to your catering director so those questions are being answered and those orders are being captured. The second thing that's really cool about these text messages is because you can customize them, you can also market any seasonal offerings that you want to market. So in this example, we have a catering menu that's being marketed. You can also do that in the greeting message. You can say things like, hey, thanks for calling Alex's Bistro. Please check out our seasonal menu for Thanksgiving. If you'd like to hear more details, please say so. What can I help you with? So that's just one example. It's infinitely customizable, so you can really push whatever messaging you want to push. And one thing I'll mention here is this is just a small subset of the use cases that we can handle. So there are dozens of questions that Slang can answer out of the box, and you can customize all of those questions in 30 minutes or less to get up and running. So if you are interested in managing how you scale up your operations before the holiday season, we can help you do that with Slang before the holidays come up. So here's a quick example of the data that we give you. So it's not just about communicating with your customers at scale, it's also about understanding what's actually happening over your phone. So how many people are calling about catering? Are you actually capturing all of those catering orders? If not, how do we change that? What time of day are your guests calling? Do your guests want indoor or outdoor seating? These are all things that you can understand through the phone channel, and we unlock that data set for you. On the next slide, we are just going to pause for a minute and see if folks have any questions, because For the content of the presentation, we're pretty much done today. I hope you all enjoyed it. We do have 15 minutes, or about 13 minutes left, so we have plenty of time to answer whatever questions you have. Okay, I got one question around what are the benefits of Slang for a full service versus a quick service or fast casual restaurant? So it has strong value for both of those types of restaurants, right? In the full service world, you're getting, especially during the holiday period, you're getting an elevated number of requests about reservations, you're getting more catering order requests, you're getting buyout requests, and a lot of those large transactional requests come over the phone. So if you're not answering those calls, you're not capturing those opportunities, and we can help you. We can help you do more with the team that you have and capture that incremental revenue. So that means handling reservations over the phone in a more streamlined way. That means greeting every guest in the way that you want them to be greeted. That means freeing up your staff to focus on those guests that are there within the four walls of the restaurant again. In terms of fast casual, it's really about two things. Number one, again, during the holiday period, you're going to get more catering requests, and you really want to be capturing those corporate catering phone calls and inquiries and fulfilling those. The second piece is standardization of messaging at scale across all of your locations. So how do we ensure that your guests are getting consistent, fast answers across all of your locations? It's really, really hard to manage with your staff, especially as you scale. So Slang can help with that. So again, on the full service side, it's reservations, catering, buyouts, and answering all of those other questions about like location, hours, etc. And on the fast casual side, we're talking about capturing those corporate catering orders and consistency of quick answers and consistent branded messaging at scale. That's a good question. Thank you. All right. Are there any other questions? Okay, no other questions. So with that, I would like to thank all of you for attending today. We will be following up with the recording of this presentation so you can have it for your reference in the future. I hope this was valuable. If you're interested in a demo of Slang, please go to our website, slang.ai, and request a demo. And you can always shoot me a note directly as well, whether you have questions on this presentation or anything that you would like, any feedback you would like to share with me. I love engaging with forward-thinking operators, so please don't hesitate to send me an email directly if you'd like to get in touch. Thanks everyone for your time today. Happy holidays.